My spouse and I have been wed for 10 years, raising 5 children together. I'm a full-time homemaker, a choice we jointly made. 3 years ago, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with hypertension. She declined her prescribed treatment, insisting that prayer and fasting would cure her. Tragically, this led to a stroke that left her with aphasia and reliant on a wheelchair most of the time. After a lengthy hospital stay, she returned home, and my husband visited for a few weeks to help her adjust. A caregiver and nurse were employed to assist her, but my mother-in-law's difficult demeanor caused frequent turnover among her care team. She has been verbally and physically aggressive toward them. For instance, one night, a caregiver contacted us because my mother-in-law dismissed her at 2 a.m. and hurled objects when the caregiver explained she couldn't leave until a replacement arrived. This turmoil prompted my husband to spend increasing amounts of time at his mother's house, managing her care. At first, he visited every other day after work to ensure everything was in order. Her home is an hour's drive from ours, making these trips exhausting. My husband suggested staying overnight at her place instead of commuting. Over time, these overnight stays grew more frequent and longer. Last month, he was home with me and the children for only 1 week, spending the rest of the time at his mother's. Our youngest, a toddler, recently mistook him for a stranger out of fear, having seen him so rarely. I brought this up, but he dismisses my concerns, accusing me of being cold and unsympathetic. He insists his mother depends on him. During a phone call yesterday, I mentioned considering divorce, as I feel like a single parent. He reacted poorly to this suggestion. To clarify, my husband is my mother-in-law's only living child. I was largely alone during my pregnancy with our youngest due to this situation, managing our older children's extracurricular activities while heavily pregnant. When I went into labor, my husband was at his mother's, and a neighbor drove me to the hospital while his wife watched our children. My father-in-law, who passed away, purchased our family home. A devout Christian, he valued family unity and often mediated our disagreements. We deeply miss his guidance. My mother-in-law behaves better in my husband's presence as he knows how to soothe her, though she hasn't been diagnosed with dementia. When I suggested a care facility, my husband rejected the idea, citing her attachment to her home and concerns about potential elder abuse in such facilities. He also fears an unfamiliar environment could worsen her condition. In a recent conversation, he tearfully explained that his mother is nearing the end of her life, and he wants to be with her as much as possible. He called my mention of divorce heartless. However, his absence for over 3/4 of the time is straining our family. His mother's care needs exceed what he can provide, and her behavior, assaulting caregivers, has no consequences, enabling her to demand his constant attention. It seems she may be manipulating the situation to keep him close by driving away caregivers. The incident where our toddler didn't recognize him was heartbreaking. His lack of response to this alarms me. If this doesn't prompt change, I'm unsure what will. Divorce isn't a step to mention lightly, and I'm not certain I'm ready to pursue it, but his absence is harming our family. Separately, my father passed away 7 years ago. Since then, I, a teenage girl, have visited my paternal grandparents monthly. They give me money each visit, encouraging me to spend it on myself or save it. My mother is aware of this, but has never seemed pleased. She hasn't tried to take the money or stop the visits, as far as I know. 3 years ago, my mother remarried, and her stepdaughter, my stepsister, is a young elementary schooler who recently celebrated her birthday. A week before the birthday, my mother suggested I use my money to buy my stepsister a gift, as I would for friends. I disagreed, explaining that the money from my grandparents was for my personal use or savings, as they intended. My mother insisted, but I refused. On my stepsister's birthday, I didn't give her a gift, which upset my mother's husband. My mother expected me to relent, but I stood firm. She called my actions unkind, noting that my stepsister, who was a toddler when we met, was disappointed. I suggested my mother buy a gift if she wanted my stepsister to have something from me. This sparked an argument. My mother claimed that, as a minor, I'm subject to her authority over my finances. She doesn't know where I keep my money, which is fortunate, but she remains upset about the situation. I feel justified, as the money is mine to use as my grandparents intended. Giving in could set a precedent for my mother to demand I fund other expenses, like gifts for her, her husband, or my stepsister. My mother seems more focused on appeasing her new family than supporting me, especially since I suspect she's using my survivor benefits for my stepsister's needs. Some might wonder why I didn't buy even a small gift for my stepsister. I believe forcing a teenager without a job to spend personal funds on gifts is unfair, though I could have done something thoughtful, like making a card. However, I felt pressured and stood my ground. In another situation, I ended my relationship with my girlfriend years ago after she pushed me during an argument, causing me to hit my head and bleed. She refused to apologize, downplaying the incident. I shared this only with my therapist at the time, who suggested that men claiming harm from women are often dishonest, which made me hesitant to tell others. My younger brother, who liked my ex, was abroad during our breakup, but reconnected with her upon returning in June. I expressed discomfort with their friendship, but he insisted I couldn't dictate his relationships. I then shared the reason for our breakup, hoping he'd reconsider. Instead, he called it a trivial reason to end a relationship. Upset by his response, I distanced myself. He later invited her to family events, including requesting an extra ticket for my sister's dance recital. When I voiced my unease, my sister initially defended his choice, but after I explained the breakup, she and the rest of the family supported me. They barred my ex from events, and my sister revoked the ticket. My brother is furious, accusing me of being manipulative and controlling for sharing the truth to influence his friendship. I believe I have the right to discuss my experiences, especially since I was the one harmed. However, I acknowledge I shared the story partly to sway his decision. I'm torn about whether my actions were fair. My family supports me, refusing contact with my ex, but my brother feels I'm isolating him. I wonder if ignoring the situation might reduce the tension, as his friendship with her may lose its appeal if I stop reacting. Finally, my wife Cassie and I, a 35-year-old man, have a teenage daughter, Jay. We've clashed on parenting styles since our relationship began. Cassie is stricter, distrustful of Jay, and favors tight control, influenced by her upbringing. I too grew up with overbearing parents, which left me with unresolved trauma, and I believe teenagers need some independence. Since Jay got a phone, Cassie has pushed for strict monitoring, which I've limited to checking her apps, public accounts, and contact names, avoiding private content like texts or photos. Yesterday, while using Cassie's phone to send myself pictures, I discovered a folder containing Jay's selfies and screenshots from platforms Cassie doesn't use. It became clear Cassie had synced Jay's phone to hers, accessing her entire photo gallery and text messages in real time. When confronted, Cassie admitted to using a monitoring app for Jay's safety. I found this unacceptable, as it violated Jay's privacy. She was unaware her personal content was being viewed. I was furious and raised my voice, though I didn't become physical. I demanded Cassie delete the app immediately, which she did, and insisted she apologize to Jay, which she hasn't. Cassie left to stay at her sister's house and hasn't returned. She now claims my reaction was abusive and that she's afraid to come home. I don't believe my response was unjustified, as we both raised our voices and I wasn't violent. I think we need to discuss this further. Cassie's actions could permanently damage Jay's trust in her once Jay learns the truth. I'm also concerned Cassie might be monitoring my phone similarly, given her behavior. This breach of privacy is serious, and I'm unsure how to proceed. Lastly, my brother runs a family business but suffered multiple strokes, impairing his speech. 3 years ago, I, previously unemployed, took over his role. My sister-in-law and father also work there. Recently, my sister-in-law asked to rehire a woman, Bella, who was let go last year. I refused because Bella has been in a 2-year affair with my father, a fact known to me, my siblings, and my sister-in-law. My mother urged us not to confront my father, so we didn't act initially. Despite my refusal, my sister-in-law rehired Bella last Thursday. I worked alongside her for 2 days, witnessing my father give her free company-owned food. Unable to tolerate this, I told my sister-in-law I wouldn't forgive her for disregarding my decision, citing urgent need for Bella's return. Frustrated, I quietly gathered my belongings and decided not to return to work. As the backbone of the business's operations, my departure will likely have significant impact. I believe my sister-in-law and father are primarily at fault. The affair, combined with Bella receiving company resources, is unacceptable. My father's influence likely drove Bella's rehiring, creating a toxic work environment. Leaving was my way of standing up for integrity and respecting my mother's wishes not to confront my father directly. I plan to use my 3 years of experience to find new opportunities, letting the business face the consequences of their choices.